Welcome back, everyone. 14 after the hour, and today in Behind the Headlines, we're taking a look north of our border here in Oregon to Washington State, where the state's marijuana market is currently facing a glut of marijuana. What a wonderful problem to have. There's just too much marijuana up here in the Pacific Northwest. The story comes out of CNBC. Washington has more pot than it can smoke. And one of the problems that's happening here is a lot of people jumped into this market wanting to become marijuana growers, figuring they're going to make a ton of money. And now they're finding themselves in competition and finding that it's just not so easy to make money as a farmer when you don't have prohibition profits on your side. A lot of the problem here, if you want to call it a problem, developed from the fact that Washington State has outdoor growing. In Colorado, there is no outdoor commercial growing allowed, so it's all happening in warehouses. But in Washington State, especially in those eastern expanses out there in the Palouse and so forth, perfect weather for growing marijuana, and they had a perfect summer, a bumper crop of marijuana. So these growers now just have a flood of product. Some 45,000 pounds are estimated right now, with no place for it to be sold. Part of the problem is that we had the retail licenses capped in Washington State by Initiative 502. So there could only be a certain number of these retail licensees. And even then, it was slow going, getting them licensed, getting them open, and so forth. We covered the opening of Seattle's first marijuana licensee, the Cannabis City, and it was open for, I think, 3 days before it had to close down due to lack of product. The growers out there are complaining because when they first got into this business, they were able to get $1,700 to $2,200 per pound of marijuana. That's wholesale. For their wholesale sales prices. But now the prices have dropped to as low as $700 to $800 per pound. Part of the problem also has to do with Washington's taxation, where growers, processors, and retailers are all taxed 25% at each level, plus the sales tax. So that's adding up to a retail price for marijuana that is much higher than you can find on the medical or the black market. Also add in the fact that Oregon has voted to legalize recreational marijuana, and we're only going to be taxing it at $35 per ounce. So we have a situation where Tom Lauerman of Farmer Tom's Organic says, quote, they've pretty much priced themselves out of the market, end quote. Now, this has caused some flack between those who represent growers, those who represent consumers. Kevin Oliver, who's the head of Washington NORML and also involved in a farming operation, was quoted as saying, quote, the people who are complaining the loudest about the glut are those producers who came online in July and were charging $21 a gram, gouging the retailers because they were the only producers on the market at the time, end quote. Now, Lauerman and other farmers say that they're giving away some of their inventory to help build customer loyalty. And there's a theory that this could be similar to the wine grape glut that we had in California a decade ago, which led to the birth of Charles Shaw wine, also known as $2 Chuck. Could there be a $2 toke as the Washington pot industry searches for stability? I do not see this as a particular problem because I tend to look at this from the consumer side of things, and anything that is bringing those prices down in Washington State is a good thing in eliminating the black market and redirecting the marijuana market in favor of the consumers and the state as far as reaping some tax revenues. Prices that had been $25 to $35 a gram in Washington State are now coming down to about $15 a gram or lower. Some locations with some varieties available for $10 a gram, which compares favorably to what you can find on the black market or the medical markets in the Pacific Northwest. Still a ways to go. There are locations in the medical markets in both states where marijuana can be found as low as $6 per gram, but the producers of medical marijuana, producers of marijuana in general, are going to have to come to grips with the fact that in a legalized world, it is going to be volume that sets you apart. It's going to be a Costco, Walmart type of situation here, because we are talking about a crop that is very easy to grow and which you can grow a whole lot of. The prices of marijuana are only going to continue to plummet as legalization continues to take root, because most of the price of marijuana has always been a function of its prohibition. That prohibition tax, that risk that's being taken at every stage of production and transport and sales, where everyone has to take an exorbitant cut to cover their risk of incarceration. As that falls away, we are going to find the true price of marijuana, which you will find when it's grown outdoors in great bulk, shouldn't be much higher than you would find for other fine leaf crops like tobacco. We are talking about an era where $30 an eighth is going to give way to $30 an ounce, even after exorbitant taxes. It won't be too long until we start to see prices that low out here on the West Coast, and that low price will cascade all across the country from west to east as more production comes online and more states become legal. We will have a wonderful moment in history where marijuana consumers are treated the same as alcohol and tobacco consumers, and the prices are fair and reasonable.